Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1698A, and today's date is October 24th, 2018, and the title of the episode is, Did Trump Just Lay Out the Plan to Get Rid of the Fed? Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, as we watch the economy slide to the downside, and everything starts to fall apart. I mean, we've been talking about homes, autos, which we're going to be talking about in just a minute. One thing that is completely constant in all of this is that Trump is out there and he continually criticizes the Fed. And what we are watching right now is Trump setting up the narrative to bring down the Federal Reserve, to bring it to its knees, to set up a way to audit it, to expose it to the people of America, to expose it to the people of the world in what the central bank does. Remember, the plan is not to just go after the deep state. It's to go after the source of their funding, to go after the source of what made the deep state. And what made the deep state? It was easy money. It was the Fed printing money out of thin air and the government borrowing. And it wasn't tied to checks and balances. They were just able to do whatever they wanted with this currency. And as we watch the entire economic system deteriorate, well, it looks like Trump is going to continually point the finger at the Fed. And as we watch the economy slide into a recession, a depression, Trump is going to continually come out more so than ever before to contradict and actually tell you what the Fed is doing and why the economy is falling apart. Now, when we look at the economy, we can see that October auto sales, they have tumbled. I mean, dealerships around the country are saying that car sales are down 12%. Traffic is drying up. Now, a couple of reports ago, we talked about how they're changing the credit scores. I wonder if this is why, because they realize as the system breaks down, those people with bad credit, they need better credit so they can take on more debt, or they need better credit to get an automobile. And it looks like this is exactly what is happening here. New home sales, this is completely falling apart right in front of our eyes. New home sales right now in September, they plunged to their lowest since December 2016, crashing by 5.5% month on month. We're also seeing a 13.2% collapse from last year. This is the biggest drop since May 2011. And we know what happened in 2009, 2010. We went fully into the Great Recession. We're also starting to see sale prices. They have declined 3.5% from a year ago. This is a complete and utter disaster. We know why it's happening. We discussed this many times. As the Fed raises its rates, it's going to affect the housing industry. And things are going to fall apart. And this is going to affect other industries. Lumber, copper, roofing, tar, you name it, concrete. It's going to affect many different industries. Now, while this is happening, the supply of homes is rising right now. So that whole argument that, there's no houses on the market, this is why people aren't buying. Well, this is falling by the wayside now. Because if we go back a couple of months, we had about 6.5 months of supply. Now we have 7.1 months, and it's rising very, very quickly. Something is wrong. The housing market is falling apart. And it's happening very fast. Actually, if we look in the northeast section of the country, we saw a decline in purchases around 40.6%. I mean, really think about what is happening here. And we've been watching and following the housing market for a very long time, and it is completely falling apart. It was falling apart before, but now since the Fed is raising rates, it's accelerating. Now, if we go back in time, I want to talk about what we saw prior to other recessions and show everyone that it's very difficult to look at statistical numbers and try to make heads or tails if we're heading into a recession. This is why we have to go past this and look at what's really going on at the people's level. So let's go back in time. Stock prices hit an all-time high in October of 2007. The latest GDP data showed we hit 4% in the second quarter. Equally strong third quarter in GDP growth. So we hit 4% in second quarter, around 4% in third quarter. And we can see that everything was fine in 2007. Remember, this was right on the verge of the Great Recession, which began in December of 2007. But the thing is, they didn't tell us this is when it began. They told us that everything was fine. In June of 2008, Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke declared that the risk of a substantial downturn appears to have diminished, stressing the upside risks to inflation instead. The futures market agreed wholeheartedly, betting on more than a full percentage point of Fed rate hikes by year end. This was smack in the middle of what turned out to be the worst recession since the Great Depression. So when he said this in 2008, we were already in the recession because it started in 2007. And he was telling us there were no problems. When Lehman Brothers collapsed in August 2008, the GDP data showed it rising in every single quarter since 2001. We had a little dip here and there, but it was moving up. What this tells us is that even though GDP was up, unemployment was very low, the Fed coming out telling us that everything was fine, we were in a recession that started in December of 2007. Remember, they don't tell you when it started right now. I mean, we're looking at it and saying we're in a recession right now. We've been in a recession for quite a while. The statistical numbers are the illusion that people think that the economy's fine. Just like in 2007 of December and 2008 of January, February, March, April, everyone thought everything was great until October when the market came down. But then we go back in time, well, they said the recession actually started in 2007. And remember, in August, companies were having problems left and right, and we really didn't know much about them. What's happening now is the same thing that happened all these other times, but it's much, much worse. And the plan is a little different because the Fed is not controlling this right now. So these numbers are not a gauge of the economy. Even though Trump is putting it out there, he's using the deep state central bank weapons against them. Now, Trump is out there and he is going after Powell. Now, I do believe Powell is working with him. And Trump said in no uncertain terms that he was intentionally sending a direct message to Mr. Powell that he wanted lower interest rates. Now, remember, we got to go back in time. Trump said that he thought that Powell was an easy money person who he was putting into this position. He knew damn well that he was not easy money. He knew what the plan was, that he was going to go in there and raise interest rates. Trump's been in business for a very long time. Everyone knows that when you raise the interest rates in a dead economy, it pushes people out of the housing market, pushes people out of the automobile market. People have a difficult time getting student loans. Credit card debt rises very, very quickly. You have to pay the debt on the government loans. And if the interest rate moves up, well, there's more interest on that. I mean, everyone knows this. He did this on purpose. This was to bring down the entire system, and he's setting up the Fed right now. He went on to say that the Fed is supposed to be independent in theory, and he suggested that he wouldn't keep quiet and let the central bank wreck the economy. Whoa! Did he just tell us what he's planning to do? Yes, he did. He's telling everyone, and he's projecting it out there for the future, that it was the central bank, the Fed, that wrecked the economy. He just set the narrative up. So, as we see this economy deteriorate and decline very, very rapidly, Trump is going to come out and blame the Fed. And he went on to say, every time we do something great, Powell raises the interest rates. It almost looks like he's happy when he's raising the interest rates. Yeah, he is, because this is part of the plan. They know that this is going to bring down the entire system. And the president declined to elaborate on what he just said, which means they're working together. He just set up the narrative. He just told the entire world who is going to be responsible for the economy coming down, who we're going to have to audit, who we're going to have to nationalize, and who we're going to have to expose. So at this time, we can see that the narrative is being set up. Now, the central bank and all those other players, remember, there's good guys, bad guys within the Federal Reserve, within all the different central banks around the world. And this is why the IMF is very worried. The BIS is very worried. The deep state players, they are very worried. And we'll get into that in the next report. But they are scrambling right now because the plan is not just to get rid of the deep state. The plan encompasses much, much more of that. Because if you just get rid of the deep state and you get rid of those players, you know other people are going to take their places. And we're going to have the same problem all over again. Because they're still receiving that source of funding. They still have a source of funds. You need to cut everything off. It's almost like the Islamic State. When Russia came in and they bombed the oil convoy, well, that got rid of their funding. It hurt that group. And that was the paid mercenary army of the intelligence community and the coalition forces. And it hurt them because that's how they were being funded. The same thing's going to happen here. There's many moving parts to this plan. And this is being pushed forward. And you can see every time that something happens, what does Trump do? He blames the Fed. And that's why Andrew Jackson, once again, is hanging on the wall. This has been planned a long time ago. You're watching the show play out right now. But one thing is for certain, and Trump has been telling us this, that we're going to have a problem with the economy. That we're going to be going through this transition. Because he told us that the central bank, they're going to wreck the economy. So we know this for sure. We know the economy is going to be coming down. This is why we've been saying you need to be ready and prepared for what comes next. You need food, supplies, and everything else. So at this point, we can see the plan is coming together. And you need to be ready for what happens next. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.